An internal affairs investigation begins first and foremost with the questions that are going to be asked of the officer. Usually the officer gets a notice in his mailbox or gets a call from his captain or lieutenant and says, report to internal affairs. And it's serious at that point. And I could feel the anxiety in the officers when they call and they say, Tom, I need you. The number one mistake that police officers make when they go into an internal affairs interview is they try to explain away the problem. And I often tell them, the internal affairs interview is not the place to defend yourself. You're in there, you're in the internal affairs interview because you have to be, because the law requires you to answer the questions that are put to you by the internal affairs investigators, or you lose your job. You need representation when you go into internal affairs. Any officer who does not take an experienced attorney with them to represent them in that internal affairs interview is risking his very career. A key component to successfully working any internal affairs case is understanding the process. And having worked in law enforcement for a dozen years before I went into the practice of law enables me to do just that. If you don't understand the process of how an internal affairs investigation works, you stand little chance of actually navigating it successfully and getting a good result for your client. One advantage of my law enforcement background is knowing the investigators. Oftentimes when I go to an internal affairs interview, it's not the first case I've had with the investigating officer. If you have a rapport like I do with a lot of these investigators, it really helps to bring a successful conclusion to the case. In my experience, most internal affairs investigators are good people who, like the officer who's under investigation, are just trying to do a good job. Most of them don't want to hurt their fellow law enforcement officers. They just want to get to the facts and submit a report to the police chief for review. I try to tap into that goodwill and speak to them like human beings, talk to them like people, and get to the bottom of what the case is really about. Sometimes a case is really more about politics than it is about the facts or what the officer is accused of doing. I had a case once where a police officer came in to see me and he said, Tom, I have a real serious problem. They want to fire me. I'm a sergeant. I've been there for 15 years. I'm at the end of my career. There's just no way that I can take any form of discipline, especially termination. He told me he had a family, he had children, and he's not likely to get hired anywhere else with only 10 years to go to retirement. Took the case, we worked it for close to 2 years, and I'm proud to say that the officer today is working in a different police department. He's happier than ever, making more money than ever, and that's a type of success story that we like to create here when we do our work. If you find yourself the target of an internal affairs investigation, don't wait. Call me right away. Get me involved in the case at the beginning, where I can do some of my best work for you